Welcome to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at DiabloInkGamers.com. We are back after our Christmas break and our New Year's break. This is our first show of 2015, and I even said the date correctly, unlike all those checks I've been writing. And I'm your host, Flux. I'm joined on the show tonight by Asmandius.
Hola.
Or is it Asmodeus? I always forget.
It's something like that.
All I have on my IM is AAHZ, so
yeah,
I don't
it's
know how to say that.
Aahz.
Aahz.
Wizard
You
of.
just want to be in the start of it. You must have a really late name, like in the alphabet, and all through high school you were the last kid
That's
called.
exactly right.
So when you came, like your last name is Zikatakios
I
or
will
something.
be first in line if I just have an online name that's AA.
Yeah. So when you look in the phone book under podcast guests, you're number one.
Sadly, we rarely queue up, anymore. You rarely have a line where I get to be first in real life.
Well, it kind of sucks once you're in the real world. That never matters anymore. Really only up to like 18 is when your last name matters in terms of what letter it starts with. Maybe in college sometimes, but generally it's just through like junior high and stuff. And after that, your whole importance is like my last name starts with B, so I was always, just by dint of nothing except for my last name, I was like always like fifth or sixth in class to get to leave. And then you always, the kid with the W is like sitting in the back row, like I hate this so much. When I get married, I'm going to take my wife's name. I don't care what it is; it'll be better than a W.
And then
once you're adult, no one cares.
Yeah, true enough.
Okay, getting right onto the Diablo 3 content to start with there. Big start. I blame you, Az.
Thank you.
AAHC. So we are talking all about patch 2.12 tonight. Obviously the patch just launched this week, and after it was on the PTR for approximately 3 years. And there's lots of big changes with greater rift density, and ancient items came in, and there's changes to some sets, and vitality change, and all kinds of stuff. We're going to cover a bunch of different topics, and popping right along through them. For me, the patch has been a little weird because I played nothing but PTR for like 2 months. I mean, they said it was going to be a quick PTR, and then it went on for forever because of the Christmas holidays, basically. And so I played all the PTR, my only Diablo 3 stuff for literally about 2 months was the PTR, and then that ended, and I played for like a week before the patch launched. And I played a little bit of live before the patch went up, just to remember myself, just to remind myself what is in this. And I'm like, why aren't there any monsters in this greater rift? Where are the ancient items, etc. But I kind of got used to it, and now the patch launched, and I'm playing this. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm used to. This doesn't seem unusual or different. So kind of the new changes, I'm like, oh yeah, ancient items weren't in the game before, but I've been playing with them since November. So you did not play a lot of PTR, from what I understand, Az. So what is striking you as new and different and amazing in the patch, or not so much?
Well, the density is certainly noticeable, and I didn't play a lot, just sporadically for the last few months. Maybe when they did a double bonus experience weekend or something like that, I logged on, and then I've played a little bit this weekend with the patch, and certainly the density is a lot better. In fact, the first one I stepped into, I can't remember if it was a greater rift or a regular rift, but it was the little level 4 layout where the portal is there, and then there's a little circle around, and there were 2 elites, and it instantly reminded me of the night that I killed PK Xanth, because it was exact same level, exact same layout, 2 elites right there at the portal entrance. But
and that's one of your Diablo 3 highlights.
It is.
Sure. So
it's
anything that reminds you of that is awesome.
My
right?
big claim to fame. But I was able to clear it out, and today I got a couple of 32 keys, which is a first for me. Usually I'm in in the high 20s, playing a hardcore witch doctor with the soul harvest build, the jade harvester build.
So other than grift density, what has popped out at you? Ancient items where people thought they'd be a huge deal, and then it's like I was testing them and saying, really no, except for weapons.
Yeah, I found.
And people were still like, can we get ancient hellfire rings? I'm like, why would you want one?
I found one, and it was of course a green amulet. Had 900 intelligence and vitality, and now it's a forgotten soul. But I haven't found any other weapons or any other ancient items, I don't think. And I've got a nice furnace, so I don't know. I read your thing about crafting, but I didn't do that right away because I'm not sure it would be a huge upgrade. For an ancient item, it might be a little bit of an upgrade. But and I don't have a gift lying around either, so the furnace has had a gift applied, and just a generic crafted two-hander, I didn't know it was going to be a big difference. So I haven't really tried the ancient weapon thing yet.
Well, so, but do you have a weapon that you need for your Witch Doctor build, or not really? You're using a furnace.
Yeah, I don't. It's not the build isn't
You're not using Star Metal or something.
right. Right now, I can use any weapon with the gear, but obviously the furnace with actually a 50% bonus to elite damage. Um, so I've been using it for a while, but that bonus helps out quite a bit, obviously. Still, I don't know if an ancient I might get that much damage boost for all the against everything. I'm not sure, and I haven't sought out the math. Math is hard, especially with the season ending so soon. I figure it doesn't matter that much.
Unless you die, in which case it matters. But yeah, it's kind of weird. But I mean, the Blizzard said they weren't going to do this in the future. They were going to end the season and then have a patch, and then after a week or two, the next season would start. And this one, they didn't do that. I think it's like they might as well have, since it's already like 3 weeks from the season ending, you know. But I guess they felt like they wanted to launch the patch before Christmas, and they didn't do it because of the devs weren't going to be available for tech support. So they felt like it had been so long. Season 1 had gone for longer than they planned on it, so they just kind of rushed it out to give us something to do. But then it's only 3 weeks, and it's causing all this weirdness where like people are totally changing. The leaderboards for grifts are like, well, suddenly you can do 4 levels higher, basically, for most people anyway. So it's sort of suboptimal. This came out so close to the patch. I wish they could have just started the new season now instead. Or instead of waiting until February 3rd is what their target date is. Just started the new season on February 20th or something. Or just we could have waited another week for the patch. It wouldn't have had that weird overlap. Or do you think anyone really cares about that?
I don't know. Well, I do think people care, especially the people at the top of those leaderboards, because I know, like in the clan I'm in, I was 1 or 2, and now I'm a distant 2. The leader is like a 36 grift, and I'm way down at 30. So that's a pretty big boost. Now I don't know. I honestly don't know if he got that before the patch or not, even. So it may not matter. But for the people up there on the leaderboards that want to, compete, I'm sure it is a big deal for them. And the density changes the game quite a bit. Of course, the conduit nerf must change it too.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. Well, I might as well. I mean, so Conduit Nerf was a big drop. I mean, on the PTR that was hugely noticeable. I mean, I posted a bunch of screenshots, and like on Greater Rift 41, I was doing 2 billion crits, with my Demon Hunter, and then after the nerf, the change, I'm doing 13 million crits, and that's a lot of zeros. I mean, I'm not big on math either, but when you're doing like 4.5 less zeros of your damage, that's like a lot.
That's huge.
And I mean, I was playing softcore on the PTR, and there were all these, the 2,000% legendary drop rate buff, and there was a huge, was it 300% experience buff, I think, for the first while. So I was actually like Paragon 540 on softcore
Wow.
on the PTR, and that's in season 2, so that's starting from nothing. And that wasn't even playing that much, but I mean, it was so quick to gear up, and then you're doing 300% experience and doing, T6 rifts in like 2.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes. And I mean, I went from P300 to P400 in like a day and a half, and I wasn't even playing that much. It was just insane how fast you could level. And then when you were doing really high greater rifts, I mean, I was doing 40. I think I could do 45 with my Demon Hunter. You'll pick up insane experience. I mean, it's like triple the experience of what you get in T6 anyway. I had never noticed that because I'd never played much higher than like GR, I don't know, 28 or something. I think it's my highest in hardcore on the live realms. And it's like, well, you're doing 40 or 40 plus. It's crazy how fast you gear up. But I mean, anyway, so my Demon Hunter was just like so much more powerful than any of my live ones. Of course, plus you can put all your gear to DPS, right? So
Sure.
that always helps when you're not dying. The funny thing I've noticed playing on live lately, you know how when you get a power pylon and you have 300% damage buff, and you're like, oh, I'm so awesome now. You're like, someday when my gear is super awesome, this is what it'll be like all the time.
Yeah.
That's actually the case when I was playing on the PTR. That literally is like what my damage numbers were when I'm doing like 50 to 60 million of crits with every multi-shot. And, that's not even no buffs. I mean, like if I get my wolves and 2 sentries down, I was doing 80 to 100 million crits.
With
and it's like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like 4 shots to kill an elite. Not even counting what your sentries are doing, which are also shooting, which is less damage than they used to be. But we'll get to that in a minute. But it's just sort of like when I'm playing on live, I'm using a cold build, so I'm mostly using Frozen Arrow, and I'll have like 3 sentries out and pop wolves, and I'll be doing like 65 million crits at best, usually less than that. And if I get a power shrine, I can do over like 100 million. I'm like, okay, this is what I was doing just as a base on the PTR, but But it is nice. You kind of know what's possible. I've actually been doing much better. I mean, I'm doing T6 really easily now on my hardcore, even though I hadn't played it in months. Like I sort of learned what the build could do, and I got a lot of practice with it. And I'm like, I really should be doing more than T4. I can do this in hardcore. But I have been proccing the Save Your Life passive. I've procced that probably 8 or 10 times in the last week. So before, if that didn't exist, I'd be dead many times over. I'm glad they finally added that in. But
It's what it's there for.
yeah, we were doing something else. We totally digressed there because I wanted to brag about my EP, so we got off track. So ancient items. I mean, you said you haven't found a lot. I found several, but they didn't do much. And I kept posting before the patch, people who really want ancient items should save up crafting materials. And I did a post the first day after the patch and showing I crafted a couple of bows. I crafted 8 bows and got 2 ancients, and one of them was like, with the socket, it was like 43% DPS buff over the like 2500 calamity I had. And that was way more damage. It easily offset losing the proc from the calamity, which is marked for death, which is 20% damage buff. But you said you weren't doing it because you had this giant furnace damage. Of course, you're good luck finding an ancient furnace, right?
Right, and like I said, if I had another gift lying around, I might do that. I might have crafted just because I knew that I could get the big buff against all the monsters. But without that, without a gift there, I don't know. It didn't seem like it would be a good use of my time for, again, playing it for like 3 weeks or whatever.
It's funny. I found like 20 gifts on the PTR. I mean, I have a whole, like half my stash tab. I was one of those people who was like first world problems. I'm like, why don't these stack? They're eating up my entire inventory. Like I had more of those in space than I had legendary gems.
How could they not stack? That makes
They
no
don't stack.
sense.
They just go side by side. It's weird. I don't know why they don't, but I mean, obviously other crafting materials do. And then of course I'd found like one ever on live, and then I found one again last week and immediately used it in the new crafted bow I made, which was nice. But I don't know why I found so many there. They weren't buffed by the 2000%. Because I didn't find any more before then. I found most of them after the buff ended. One funny thing I noticed on the 2000% when they had that huge legendary drop buff at the start of the PTR is, you know how they always tell us that legendary crafting plans are not part of the same drop table?
Right.
And like someone will say, "Oh, I can't wait till I find the last of these so I can finally start finding more legendaries," and some blue will post and say that's not the case. I can confirm that it's not the case because I found like 2 legendary crafting plans in like a week on the PTR when I was finding 50 legendaries per rift,
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely not on the same plane because you would literally find every single elite would drop 1 or 2 legendaries when that buff was in place, and that was a brand new start of season 2, so I had nothing. I had like no crafting plans. So if they were dropping, I would have seen them, and I would just occasionally get one. So they actually are on a different loot table. So Blizzard wasn't just lying to us because they lie to us. Because they're always lying.
Good way to confirm that.
Or maybe they just fixed it on the PTR.
Buff.
Maybe they just fixed it on the PTR so we couldn't tell.
Let's keep the conspiracy theories going.
Like Jay Wilson was crawling under the servers at night, like hot wiring it, like putting a bomb under a car in a mafia movie, because he's out to get us still. So random other nonsense topic. So the 2 biggest, well, there were 3 big item set changes. The Sunwukos for the monk and the Marauders for the demon hunter and the barb set Rakors, right? Rakors. I wish they could have more double vowels in their words in Blizzard. It really makes the names way too easy to pronounce. Anyway, I have not played Rakers before or after, and whenever I watch a YouTube video of it, it seems like the dumbest build in the world. Like the barbarian just sort of like lunges around places. Like he just sort of like jumps like 5 yards and stops, and then there's like 120 million crits popping up all over the place. I'm like, how is this a build? Obviously it works, and it's effective and all, but it doesn't look very appealing to me, and I haven't tested it, so I don't know anything about it. So we can't comment on that one. You haven't played that one, right?
I have not played that one. Yeah, just Witch Doctor since season 1.
If you could play it, would you, or are you a bad person?
Yeah, I don't think I would play that one. Now, the Sunwuko, I am interested in playing that in season 2. I'm thinking about going back to a monk when that launches.
Okay, I tested that a fair amount on the PTR, so I'll talk about that a little. What the proc does now, if you have I think 3 pieces of the set is required, or is it 4 pieces? I don't remember. I mean, everyone just has 3, and it's 4. But you need 3 with a ring of royal grandeur, of course.
Okay.
And what it does is it occasionally procs this like glowing spectral looking monk. It looks a little bit like one of your what are those things called? Decoys? I forget what the hell is it?
Allies, right? Mystic allies.
Yeah, whatever that monk thing is, where they have the ones that run around with you.
Yep.
But it's like a glowing kind of a lightning tinged looking one. The problem with that, it's really hard to see, especially if you're doing like Fists of Thunder or something. You just don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
It appears next to you and then it blows up after a couple seconds. And I think it's 500% damage when it blows up. And then it procs everything in the blast radius, or is it just everything in the whole screen for 3 seconds? I think if it's for 3 seconds, you get a buff of 500% plus 500% weapon damage to all of your big spenders, Wave of Light and the other ones like that. Which
Nice.
seems like a cool idea, but I mean, I used it. For the first problem, you can't tell when the damn thing procs. You just don't notice it. It's vanishing in all of the. You may have noticed this, Oz, but Diablo 3, there's kind of a lot of visual effects
Yeah.
going off.
Yeah, I have noticed
I don't know
that.
if you've noticed that or not, but sometimes when you're fighting a boss and you're a melee ranged character, and a tiny little blue and white thing appears that gives you a damage buff, you ain't gonna see it. So you hardly ever know when it's in effect. It really needs a more obvious buff, or a flash of light or something. At least give it like a Miranay kind of burst up to the sky.
I'm lucky to even find the cursor.
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't played much melee characters in a while. I used to Demon Hunter, so I played a fair amount of Monk on the PTR. I'm like, I never know what I'm pointing at. But you don't notice when it procs, and then you don't really notice that your damage buffs. I mean, it's nice if it's 500%, but it's not like you can cast 50 Wave of Lights in 1 second.
Right. Do you get an
You get
icon?
you get off 2 or 3 and you're out of spirits. So
Do you get an icon on your bar, or even there?
I
I
don't
know
think it had a bar icon. Even if it did, there's always like 5
yeah,
showing for the Monk anyway.
true. It's
Because
hard
you've
to
got
track it.
multiple. You got Sweeping Wind, and you've got your buff, and you've got an ally out popping around, and it's hard to notice one more that only lasts for 3 seconds. I mean, especially if you're doing like a Wrath of Blazing Wrath of Blazing, whatever that other monk skill is,
Hmm.
that gives you a short-term buff of damage, and everywhere you're banging on your aura to get the. I was using overpower overall mostly, I guess. And so there's constantly little icons popping up for 3 seconds. It's really hard to notice, and it really needs to like cut your resource costs in half or something like that, just to make it more usable. Because as it is, you just sort of do your normal thing, and every now and then for 3 seconds you get a little damage buff. It doesn't change your play style in any way, shape, or form. And I just don't think that's really effective that way in terms of letting me know what this is. It'd be nice if it made it more obvious what you're doing.
So basically, you're
And there's
just getting more damage overall. Not really, and it's hard to tell in specific spots or when it procs or anything.
Yeah, I never noticed it really making a difference. And plus, one of the best monk passives now, one of the new ones, is where it adds a big damage buff to the first spender, like every 3 seconds or something like that. I think it's after your third charge up hit,
Hmm.
you get a big buff to your next spender, which is basically the same thing. So what you end up doing with a monk is you just sort of do punch, punch, bomb, punch, punch, bomb, punch, 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 bomb, just sort of all the time to take advantage of that proc. And so you're doing that anyway, and then just every now and then one of those gets a little bit extra from the Sunwukos. And so I just didn't think it really worked as a buff. I mean, I was more effective. My monk in softcore on the PTR was able to do about like I think 35 GR was about his best. And the
That's
problem,
good.
I just couldn't kill fast enough. I mean, I wasn't dying that much. I just didn't have the killing power.
Yeah.
But my Demon Hunter could do 35 with 2 items sitting in the stash. I mean, it was just no comparison. So hopefully they'll fix that one a little. Why don't you talk about the Witch Doctor changes a little before I go into the whole Marauders thing? So we won't be the Flux podcast.
Sure. Well, the one thing that I've noticed so far with the patch, which I didn't expect, because I have been reading all the information on Gamers anyway, is that my zombie dogs are actually more fragile. They die a lot more frequently. And, they had said something in the patch notes about how your pets won't take damage from certain sources that the player is meant to avoid. But the problem comes in with the health globe nerf. I was keeping my zombie dogs alive a lot by picking up health globes, and now I need a bunch of those to heal them, so they don't get healed and they die. Now it's not terrible. Like it's not okay. I just lost them, like in the days in vanilla where you would lose them in the first elite fight. But it is a nerf. And of course, I'm not running a pet build either. So maybe if I were running a pet build with buffs, they would be hardier. But it was definitely noticeable. They're dying much more frequently in Realm of Trials and Grifts. Even the T6 Rifts, I'm losing them.
So that is a change I had forgotten about completely until you mentioned it, because I'm not using a build that really needs health globes for healing, and that was something they changed in the patch. And of course, it's been 2 months. I've gotten used to it on the PTR, but you get the same amount of health globes. They just do less healing.
Right.
Do you know the percentage on that? Do you remember?
I don't know what the percentage is, huh?
I think it used to be like 16.6. I think it was a sixth of your health, and now it's like a tenth or something. But I don't know.
Yeah, and it's all pet related for me for the build because I'm using the Soul Harvest rune that heals you. So I heal myself when I click Soul Harvest, which of course I'm doing as soon as it comes off cooldown with that build. But the pets, I was reliant on the health globes to keep them healthy, keep them upright.
And they don't get as much healing as they used to.
They
So
don't.
have you tried shift and the potion button? That was only Diablo 2 though, right?
I
Be nice if you could do that now, huh?
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, or drag one
There could be
over.
a separate healing potion cooldown for
I
pets.
can just left drag that potion over to the little thing on my bar and heal them.
And you can't just cast a lot of new dogs. That doesn't. So you don't have enough mana or what?
No, you can. I mean, it's not so bad. I mean, I can recast them, and of course, the Grave Injustice, lowers the cooldown, so it's not an issue except for it's more micromanagement than it used to be.
So the change in the patch supposedly that you mentioned is that they made so pets take less damage from ground effects, basically.
Right.
So they don't just stand in arcane or plague and just get nuked instantly.
Right.
And do you notice that that's a help, but they're just dying from general wear and tear or what?
That's correct. Like they don't die as much in like waves or spikiness. You can tell that they're taking less damage, yeah, in arcane beams and such, but they just kind of get worn down, and then, well, except for Mallet Lords will take them out. But that was true before, so isn't really a change.
So did you notice a big vitality boost? I mean, a hit points boost, because the kind of going with that is they changed the way that each point of vitality gives you more hit points than it used to.
I forgot to look at that, and I should be getting a big boost on that because I did have a pretty significant vitality. I think I had over 550k life points, which for me actually in hardcore is pretty high. I tend to do mitigation over vitality. I'll have to look at that. I forgot to check to see what the life pool is now.
Yeah, because my Demon Hunter went from like 520 to like 660.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a considerable buff. Obviously, how much you get will depend on how much vitality you have versus plus life percentage gear. Because it doesn't help if plus life percentage doesn't help. You want more points of vitality because each point of vitality is worth a few more hit points than it used to. But I think for people that are playing softcore and they have like 200k hit points, they won't even really notice it. They'll go to like 230 or something. But it seems like hardcore players are getting 150k quite often. But so either you feel safer or you re-gear, and one of your items that has vitality, you switch that off to plus a skill damage or something like that.
Just pulling up my armory profile, looks like I'm over 750k now, so that's a pretty big boost. That's like 200k boost, I think.
Yeah. So you want to re-gear, you could
That's
switch
right.
a vitality item off. Something anyway. Or at least certainly maybe you change some of your Paragon points or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've definitely noticed that in my character in terms of not dying as much.
Yeah.
Or seeming more, but it doesn't help your doggies though. So.
No, not yet. Maybe
So
maybe
what
next
good is it
patch.
then? One other thing that you're not going to have any comment on, not having played enough, but one thing the patch changed is the rarest of legendaries, of which there are like 26 of them that are the least, that are generally 1/10 in drop rate. That meaning, so if there's like 8 legendary gloves, most like 4 of them for your class, in terms of your smart drops, and some of those will be set items, of course, but most of them are 1/1, like a fraction.
Right.
And then a few of them will be 1/2, and a couple of them will be like 1/5, and then a few of them will be one of them will be 1/10. Like for instance, with gloves, like Frostburns and Tasker and Theo were both 1/10. So in theory, you would find 10 of the most common legendary gloves for every one of those you found. So it's not an absolute thing; it's sort of a relative thing. And the drop rates are different, because we never had the full drop rate tables like we had for Diablo 2, where you could look at Monster X had, 0.0027 3.1% chance of dropping, Tal's armor or whatever like that.
Right.
We don't have that in Diablo 3. It's all we know is the relative commonality of things. But they said one of the patch changes, those least common items were going to be more common, and from what I heard, they were going to be basically double. So instead of being, one out of every 10, they'd be 1 out of every 5 basically chance. And I kind of, it's hard to notice that unless you play a lot, because you're not going to say 50% more of 0 is still 0, right? So that you're not going to notice.
True.
I did notice after that change went like halfway through the testing cycle on the PTR, And in the next week, I immediately found a Frostburns and a Ice Climbers, which were two of those very rare items
Nice, yeah.
from monster drops. But you can't say that if that's just just RNGesus, right?
Sure. Yeah, I
So
haven't.
have you found half a dozen furnaces this weekend or anything?
Nope, I haven't found anything quote unquote rare. It's been the same old stuff. The Malos staff and the Wildwood sword and the Imperium Messenger spear. All the stuff that I've always found in seasons.
Have you found any Blackthorns items? Because those are really hard to
Yeah,
come
I
by.
have found a few of those, at least
You said
two.
it was funny. You mentioned earlier the ancients. You're like, I found a green amulet. I just laughed. I'm like,
And
gee, I wonder which one that
it
was.
was Traveler's Pledge, actually.
No, it wasn't. It was Blackthorns. It's always Blackthorns. The answer is always Blackthorns.
I think I
But
found
yeah,
two Traveler's Pledges, actually. One ancient, one regular.
maybe you can get a flavor of time to go with that and get the best set bonus ever. Yeah. So um, speaking one thing I wanted to mention about the monk, speaking of legendary items, is the Gungdo Gear, which no one knows how to pronounce yet. Gungdo. What do you think that is? Gungdo?
Gungdo, I guess.
Gung. It's like the G and the D should be a separate syllable,
Ah.
like gunged hyphen do. Maybe it's just gungdo. Anyway, I think that's a season 2 item, so it's not actually live yet. But I did find those on the PTR. I was able to test that out, and those are the ones people are all excited about. That it's going to be like a monk build changer. And what it does is it makes your exploding palm contagious. So it
Right.
kind of works like some of the procs on like Haunt for the Witch
Yeah.
Doctor or like Marked for Death, where if something dies and other monsters are near it, that they will gain the effect, like Locust Swarm kind of thing, right? But it seems fantastic when you hear about it, but actually using it, I didn't find it that useful. I was actually not using it initially after a while. I was using the Krelm's bracers instead, which make you
Sure.
can't be vortex or knocked back,
Sure.
which is really helpful with a monk in melee range stuff. The the problem with the Gungdo gear, as they functioned on the PTR, is that the radius of effect is really small. I
Ah.
mean, exploding palm is what, like 10 yards or something?
Yeah, something like
So
that.
it's fantastic if you have a really tightly packed bunch of monsters, but if anything is even like, half a step away, it won't get it. So it's not like you get one thing and then it sort of spreads across the entire screen. There's like 50 monsters with exploding palm. You can get a whole bunch if they're really tightly packed, but what you actually end up doing is you end up running around for 50 yards or so until you get a whole bunch of monsters, and then you start banging away in one spot and blow them all up really quickly.
We're using,
It kind of changes how you play.
we're using Cyclone Strike?
I was using Cyclone Strike a lot because I was getting nothing with otherwise. I was using Cyclone Strike and Wave of Flight mostly.
Okay.
Dropping I was lightning, so I was dropping the pillar one.
Okay.
And that was good, but you had to get stuff so close to use it. It was fantastic for Realm of Trials.
Yeah.
That's where something like that is where it's awesome. Where you just get a really big pack, or like if you're in the Dogger Oasis, or if you're on a rift that has really high density. Or it's really good for bosses because you would end up doing the elites. You'd hit the minions, and you'd pop one minion, and then all of the minions and the boss had it, and the next minion you killed, everything would basically die. It was really nice for yellow elites. That was one thing it was great for. But once I got powerful enough with this monk to do like GR35, if I was doing a T6 Rift, it was never useful because I could kill stuff before it ever went off anyway.
Yeah.
It just wasn't worth the trouble.
And
And what it seemed like to me would have been awesome is if they'd made it a proc chance, like Calamity Bow kind of thing, where
mhm.
like every 10th monster you hit automatically casts Exploding Palm. And you don't want it so good that it's just a full-time always Exploding Palm, even though of course that's what Calamity does, where you just always everything is marked for death. But it seemed like it would have been useful if it was, often enough and you wouldn't have had to burn a skill slot on Exploding Palm. And you could have done other stuff with it. But yeah, I was disappointed because I really wanted that to be awesome. It was awesome using that at the BlizzCon demo, where you just get these huge packs of them with the Gungdo gear. That was part of the monk's basic equipment. But yeah, I wasn't happy with it as I'd hoped to be, sadly enough.
Yeah, and with Cyclone Strike, it's hard to beat strong arm bracers anyway. You get the big 30% damage boost there.
Yeah.
Probably more consistent.
And Krelms is so nice with a monk too.
Yeah,
I think
that's a
those
good
are also
point.
seasonal. No, those were in the last season, right?
Yeah, they're seasonal. Season 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
In season 1 they were in though.
Yep.
Yeah, just not being able to knock back or vortex is just so nice in terms of positioning and stuff. Not even so much survival, just being able to put things where you want them. So I found that actually more useful unless I was doing a really high GR. It was kind of like Exploding Palm in the old days of Diablo 3 Vanilla, where it was fantastic on higher levels, where it leveraged up the monster hit points so well. It seemed like the Exploding Palm Contagion really worked well when you had big crowds because the fights would go on longer and stuff would really start crowding around you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
and when the more things were near you, it was awesome because you could get that contagious effect. But it wasn't that great in of itself, and I think it would be better if it was a procking thing, a percent chance to do it. But anyway,
Next patch.
so yeah, one thing I mentioned in the news this week, the issue that's coming up now that we're getting double goblins this week with the buff is when you get double gem hoarders or the ones that drop materials, it's like you need to get a four-finger transplant halfway through it. It's like you're playing Diablo 1 again because you will left click and you will left click and you will left click. And I posted a news thing on that, sort of a little miniature article, and said, "What do you guys think?" And last time I looked, there were like 25 comments, and all 25 are like, "Yes, we need auto pickup."
Yeah,
And you said that in your notes as well. So do we need auto pickup now or what?
we do. I got a double the jewel or the gem one, I guess, two gem goblins, and after the fight, it was just click, 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 click. They were all over the place. Um, and since those stack, I mean, I don't know why they can't be like health potions. Almost everybody picks up gems, so just pick them up, add them to the stack.
Yeah, gems and materials we want auto pickup.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Especially now
And
with
it's not like you don't want gems. As you say, they stack. If you don't want them, you can drop 1,000 at a time. After that. I mean, I would be happy if potions just laid on the ground because
right,
I have legendary potions on all my characters. So who cares? But it's just one stack, and you sell it, and you get 200 or something, right?
right. Yeah, they took that. I was surprised that they took that down on the health potions. They made them what, 1 gold a piece. Like,
Yeah, it's just
come on, I
I
could
just
at
don't.
least sold 100 for I don't know what it was, 2,000 gold, but that was something.
Well, the fun part is you can't ever drop the damn things. You pick up again as soon as you do. It's like I cannot get rid of you. Remember they were only 100 and you end up with it juggling some stack across the screen,
That's true.
and you're like, I don't want you, go away, and you couldn't get rid of them. It was like no escape. So
So we definitely ought to pick up on materials and gems, especially if you're going to do double or even just with the goblin packs now.
yeah, the mega gaba packs. I posted a couple of screenshots of
Oh,
that in the post, and that was just you get a couple of the infernal. I forget what the stupid material ones, the green ones are called. You get a couple of those and a couple of gem hoarders, and you're just like you spend like 5 minutes after the battle just left clicking crap, and like you don't even really need it that much. At this point in the season, you probably got enough gems, right? So,
right.
well, then again, you're playing a yellow gem character. Apparently, there's never enough topaz for witch doctors and wizards because you always need more than you end up having to roll a ring of royal grandeur 75 times or something. But
Uh,
I pretty much have enough emeralds at this point on my demon hunter and my monk, but I can't resist them anyway. It's like ooh shiny. I
yeah.
was just leaving them behind on the PTR. I'm like, who cares? It's PTR. I don't need any more of these things now.
I think I have too much of a pack rat mentality. I don't know that I could do that. That would be tough. It would be harder for me to train myself not to pick them up than to just pick them up and get rid of them later.
But the material ones are actually kind of useful because everyone seems like they're always out of white or blue materials these days, whereas you get a million yellow ones. But
Right.
so on related topic to that, you said stash space. You said you
Ugh.
definitely want more stash space in hardcore. You only play a witch doctor though. What do you need more stash space for?
For items, it's an items game. And you have to keep stuff in hardcore in case you die, and especially in case you die multiple times. Like, it's easy to say, oh, well, that strong arm bracers or whatever, you've got one of those, you don't need another one. But what if I get disconnected? What if I, push myself too high on a greater rift, and lose my character? I need that equipment to get back quickly to where I was. And I just think it's crazy that you can't add more storage. It's upsetting, and I really feel like I'm limited. I want to go out and hunt for more items. Just make it a hardcore only thing. Just add a stash and call it, I don't know, you can only access the stash if you die or something. I would take that just so I could put stuff in there. Although I don't know that one tab even is enough. you, you play, you search for items, and if you get non-smart drops and you want to put them on a different character, that's more stuff in the stash. Now the crafting materials help a lot when they've gone to the 5,000. Although why did they not just go to 9,999? Is that just so that they can do that later on in another patch or something? But
Yeah, they have to double it in the next expansion.
yeah, it's really frustrating to me that I've got a practically full stash. Another case is the Hoarder caches. Okay, it's fun to store up a few of those. I've got, I don't know, 6 or 10 or something waiting to be opened. But there again, that's more space being taken up. That I like to have more just more flexibility, more stuff to store. And I see they interview these the answers like, well, we don't want to load up these objects, and if we gave you more, you just want more. I don't know what to tell them. I mean, that's true, but
Is that a problem?
isn't storage cheap these
More,
days?
more because more.
And isn't this an item-based game that you're wanting us to find things? I don't know. The hardcore population is pretty small, right, relative to the player base. So just make it for hardcore.
Yes, but the whole point in hardcore is that we have the exact same game, and they don't give us things that are easier, etc.
I don't know. The
I'm
game is
afraid you're
all
not really hardcore anymore,
the
dude.
game is already diverse though with the greater rifts, right? I mean,
I may have to kick you out of the guild. I'm afraid now. You're not really hardcore anymore.
I guess not. Um, but already people in softcore are doing these, what, 10 levels higher and greater rifts. So it's in some ways it's a different game there anyway. So at least throw
Well,
a
my
bone.
PTR experience certainly argues for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
throw a bone to the hardcore base, the passionate fans. That's not fair. I mean, the softcore players are passionate too, but throw a bone to us for risking it and give us like double the stash base. Just double it.
Do you have mules?
I only have 15 character slots, and I used the mules for my non-seasonal characters, and that may be something that I have to do is just end up deleting the non-seasonal characters. And I
Yeah, probably when the season ends, you're going to have some space. Of course, you'll have less stash space
yeah,
too when you have
exactly.
more
But how do
character
I
space.
merge all that stuff? I'm gonna have to spend. I'm so dreading that. I'm gonna spend like 2 hours just on inventory management, getting rid of stuff from my non-seasons that I don't need, and saying, okay, I got a better one in seasons than that. I'm not looking forward to that management, but it's coming. Um,
One benefit of this new patch is that ancient items make lots of old weapons obsolete. So, I mean, I threw away a whole bunch of my weapons that I had saved up because I'm never going to use that because an ancient one's always going to be better unless it's, some specialty thing like a furnace or whatever.
Now that's a good point. That's something for me to keep in mind because in theory you can always keep crafting, right, until you get a new ancient one.
Yeah, and I mean, I had a bunch of, I don't know what, 22, 23, 2400 damage one-handed crossbows and one-handed melee weapons and stuff. And when you can make a 2800 or a 3000 crafting pretty easily, you're never going to use a 2400 unless it's one of the special ones.
Right.
And unless it's got some legendary property you absolutely have to have. And they're not making, they're not retconning the legendary properties. So you have to find a new one. The set items they did retcon it, and then you immediately got it with the sets, but they're not doing it with legendaries. So there's no point in saving old legendaries, hoping that one day they gain some awesome legendary property. You have to find the new one anyway.
So I have to be happy with the materials that now I can go from 2 stacks to 1 stack, and happy with the fact that I can craft ancient items so I can get rid of generic legendary weapons. All right.
And you'll find some ancient stuff. You'll find some ancient that's not even that good, but it's got 600 more DPS,
Sure.
so you're going to use it anyway. Maybe is so. I mean, in theory, you could defend this whole thing as saying inventory management is part of the game. You can only carry so much stuff on your character. You can only wear so many items. You can't wear 10 rings at once. That means you have to pick 2 really good rings because you've only got 2 fingers. Because apparently you wear mittens. So is it part of the game, part of inventory management? You've only got 5 tabs. You can't just save every single item you ever find. You've got to pick the ones that are good. I mean, in real life, you can only carry so much stuff, right?
And I'm limited to 15 characters. That's part of the game too. Because I spent the extra money to get the extra character slots just for this
Yeah,
purpose.
I think you're limited to 12 characters unless you pay.
No, no, no.
Unless
I
you pay for
paid.
the
I
CE.
paid extra money to get.
Yeah,
15.
well, you did. So you've already bought extra characters. So you've already paid 40. You've already paid $40 DLC for 3 character slots, basically.
So
And you got some Tyrael, and you got some angelic wings too. So there you go.
So I'm not sure that I'm buying the whole limiting factor there, because why are the mules limited? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have any mules anymore. I have a couple of old mules. I had a mule called White Holder. I realized. I mean, what the hell is that? And it was full of white items. Because remember back in crafting
Right.
forever ago, you actually
Yep.
needed the base item type.
I love
I'm like, yeah, I'd probably delete this now. I think.
I love those Act 5 maps and the rifts. Like you're doing rifts, like, oh, good, we got an Act 5 map with all the weapon racks. We can get that whatever that we're looking for. I need those
Yes.
boots.
I remember spending like a week in one of the PTR patches trying to find a white quiver.
Oh,
Because
jeez.
and then finally realizing there actually are no white
They're
quivers.
disabled. Yeah, they're not in the game.
They're only blue or because come with a couple of the recipes when the new quiver was like Archfiend's arrows or whatever it is. it required a white quiver when they first put it in there. Of course, they don't exist. You cannot find a non-magical quiver. I'm like, well, that's great. Or any of the other offhand, you couldn't get a white, a white source or a mojo either. So there were recipes that just could not be made in the initial version of it on the PGR, which you realize after a week of hitting every armor rack in Act 5. It's like, God damn it, running through the stupid town one because there's so many armor racks in the town.
Yeah.
Those little wagons they have, and just doing that an ancient battlefield, whatever it's called, with the where there's tons of armor racks around there, weapon racks. I forget one of the two, but oh, those are armor racks. You needed weapon racks to get quivers. So I was just looking everywhere. I'm like, these don't exist. I hate you so much.
Admittedly,
And then Jay Wilson laughed.
yeah, that was a big boon to Sash Space as well. Something else I'm supposed to be happy about, right?
Yeah, speaking of Boon, you said you found your first Boon of the Hoarder.
I did. I got one from a Rift Guardian on the first grift I did, which from the description, it seems like a bug. Because you can find them on there only if you've already found the portal, the vault. And I still haven't found the vault with my seasonal character, but I got one. And so I spent the double goblin weekend, my limited playtime in grifts, so I can level that thing up, just to see it, in action. I did run it a few times when it was low ranks, and I got, I don't know, 5 or 6 million each T6 run, which is pretty nice.
So had you gotten the Boon of the Hoarder before the season from Creed or what?
Yeah, I had it before the season, but
So maybe that's just what the bug is. They don't note it.
maybe that could be it. Yeah.
Because I can't test it. I found one in the season, so it'd be funny if when season 2 starts, if everybody don't get one of those from a greater Rift Guardian immediately if they've gotten one in the past. So have you been broke for like 6 months in the season, and you finally have some gold now?
I haven't been broke. I mean, I've probably procced Spirit Vessel 3 dozen times, but I actually have not died. So if you don't die, you start to accumulate gold. So I think before I got the gem, I was like 170 million with like 450 Forgotten Souls.
Yeah, you know how much gold I had on the PTR?
A billion?
68 billion gold.
Oh, jeez.
But that was because wave of trials was bugged. So
I forgot
the
about
first week
that.
the wave of trials would give you the same gold as experience. I was getting 900 million at a pop, and 1.6 million a pop for like GR42 or something.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was ridiculous because people kept saying, people would ask me questions on the forums and stuff or the comments and saying, how is the gold situation? I'm like, I have no idea. I've got 68 billion gold. It goes up. I haven't gone to 67 or 69, but I'm not going to notice any other change, So I've actually been keeping up on money. I noticed if I did a bunch of gym, I actually did use a Boon of the Hoarder a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've had one forever, and it's not on level 10 or something like that. I didn't even bother to level it much, but I just used that for a few games. The irony is this is on live. I've been playing T6 and really trying to find some other gifts of Ramalandi to for socketing. And I just had one forever and couldn't find one. I go into T3 using the Boon of Hoarder and immediately find one. I'm like, oh, God damn it. Like you're struggling on T6, risking your ass in hardcore just to find this stupid thing, and you go to T3 just to have fun with a Boon of the Hoarder. And immediately one drops, and you're like, "Thanks, Jay. I love you too."
Yeah,
I've
been at I've only found one. I think I'm Paragon like 342 on my seasonal character. I've still only found the one gift.
God, that's crazy. I found like dozens on the PTR. It's weird. I've only found 2, I think, ever in softcore in live.
Speaking of Realm of Trials, by the way,
I was going to mention that we were segueing into that.
Yeah.
So there's less dead time now. You said you appreciate the change.
Yeah, it is better. It does move faster. It seems like you can jump 6 or 7 levels pretty quickly. But I mean, come on, they need to put this in where you can just trade in your Rift Key or make it 5 Rift Keys. If I can just pick, okay, give me that 32 that I just earned or that 30 or whatever. I know for softcore it's a lot different. They're higher numbers, but you shouldn't have to do that over and over. It's boring, and it's a simple change. Just put it in. The players want it. Just put it in. Stop making us waste our time.
Well, the theory is a higher grift gives you a chance to upgrade a higher legendary gem. So if you enable people to do infinite number of times of the same grift, if you can't, say you can only get up to 30 in the waves, and you need to get a 35 to have a good chance for your legendary gem upgrade, right? If you can just do all the 35s you want, that's giving you a competitive advantage. I mean, if everybody has it, I guess everybody has the same advantage, though, right?
I'd rather have 5 less. I'd rather have 5 less than my highest than have to go through that thing again and again. I mean, it's repetitive and boring. I don't want to have to spend my time getting drift keys that way. So yeah, so if I top out at a 35, say okay, you can only get a 30, and you have to trade in 5 keys, I'm there. Just make it
Well,
happen.
the suggestion I think works easily is just let you do more than one at a time. So when you earn your key at the end of the wave of trials, you can turn in 5 or 10 at once
Okay,
instead of having to do one for every single one.
that's not bad. I'd take that.
But I think when people say I should be able to do whatever Greater Rift I was able to do, I should be able to just do that forever. There's a lot of exploits in terms of multiplayer stuff then, or your friend's got 2 demon hunters and you just immediately are on Greater Rift 47. And it's like, well, you didn't earn this. You could never do this by yourself. And if you can just grind through it, then you can get much higher legendary gems than you should be able to. If there weren't legendary gems, if they made it so legendary gems could only be upgraded if you finish the rift in 15 minutes, I think they could take all that out.
Hmm.
But as it is, you could spend an hour on a greater rift just dying 40 times. Obviously not in hardcore, but
Yeah, maybe
that
that's
seems like that's the exploit that I think they're concerned
maybe
about in
that's the
software.
disconnect. I forget about that kind of stuff in the game, honestly, since I've played hardcore for so long.
Yeah, I mean, but you can envision if you could just you could just get to one and just zerg your way through it and die 30 times, and then you get 3 guaranteed upgrades on your gem or whatever. You can get a much higher level gem than you would otherwise be able to get. Because you could never earn that level of greater rift from the wave. It's 10 higher than you can ever do, that kind of thing.
Well, fine. While I'm wishing for ponies, then just put that system in for hardcore only.
That'll be in your 7th stash tab.
Oh, that would be
That's where you
nice.
access it.
That would be nice.
So I should mention, I'll try to briefly on the whole Marauder set thing, 'cause that's a huge change. And I tested that. I played, 100 hours on the PTR or something of that, so quite a bit of it. And so what the big change with Marauders is, instead of just being able to cast a new sentry every 8 seconds or whatever, you now get up to 2 at a time with charges. It works just like the monk's dashing strike
Sure.
does. And one of the rune effects, you can do up to 3 charges at once too, I think. Actually, that might be only the monk skill. I'm forgetting.
Custom
Yeah, I think that
engineering.
is only the
It's
monk.
probably custom engineering, wouldn't it? Give you an extra charge.
It could be. I'm pretty sure there's a way to do it with 3. I didn't use it because I didn't think it was that effective. And so each sentry, once you cast it, it gives you a damage buff to your demon hunter's attack. But the sentries only do 100% weapon damage. They used to be 200%. So each sentry does half the damage it used to, basically.
Okay.
But each sentry you cast buffs the demon hunter's damage.
Okay.
The way the buff works, I actually asked a dev about this. It is any sentry that exists is a buff. So it's not just ones that are actually shooting in proximity to you.
Hmm.
So basically, you'll still keep your max, 3 or 4 or 5 sentry buff, depending on however many you can do, if you have them all out, as long as I think they last 30 seconds apiece, I believe. Or is it 60? If only I played a Demon Hunter, I would know these
I think
things.
it's 30, and then didn't custom engineering make it longer?
Yeah, I believe you're correct. I think it's 30 seconds. So what you end up doing is if you're running through a big empty area and you have 2 chargers, you just want to drop a sentry.
Okay.
Just so you'll always have enough available that you won't be losing out on your max damage. Unfortunately, there's not an icon that shows it. I really think there should be an icon above your toolbar that would show you, and it would have, it would have just the number. It would show a sentry, it would have a number, and the little second hand would zoom around it, And after every time one of them went away, the number would change inside the thing, and the second hand would show you when the last one was going to go out.
What if it just put like a slight color change under your feet, like
Yeah, that'd be great.
barbarian bash skill or whatever, where you get charges.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. That'd be totally visibly obvious. You would never not be able to see that. So I can't see any downside to that. So basically, yeah. So what happens a lot when you're playing is you run around with 2 charges and you get to a group of monsters and you immediately drop 2 sentries and start banging away with your spenders. And when you shoot spenders, your sentries shoot spenders. Otherwise, they just shoot the regular little sentry shot,
Okay.
which is like a cold bolt or something like that. It's just a single little thingy.
Mm-hmm.
They do not shoot your normal generator, unfortunately, which would be kind of fun if they did that, but. So they don't do a whole lot of damage except when you're using spenders. So it makes resource management a real big thing for the Demon Hunter now. Because you really want to have max hatred. It seems like that makes blood vengeance almost mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Unless even if you have the bracers.
Reaper's Wraps.
The Reaper's
Yeah.
Wraps, yeah. I was using both of those on the PTR. So I would get Reaper's Wraps and I had blood vengeance, and every time I got a health globe it was like, 60% hatred refill.
Sounds very similar to my Demon Hunter before I got the Marauder set. You're just constantly trying to get enough to shoot offloader for bear.
Yeah, and you really want to keep, but so it makes the hatred generator, the hatred resource, a much more active part of the game.
Right.
Where it's really useful to have ways to boost that, and I'm putting Paragon points in that immediately. That's really a useful thing. Of course, there's not much else in that
Sure.
tab to put it. I guess dexterity, but if you're softcore anyway, obviously run speed you need. But once you get that maxed out, but I think it makes it a lot more fun to play that way, and it gives you much more of a sense of strategic stuff. You have to do the damage yourself. You can't just drop a couple sentries and run around the corner and get a cup of coffee like in the old days. You have to
Yeah.
actually do the damage yourself.
Sounds more
And
active.
it really makes a difference with something like Waller, because suddenly if you're not using multi-shot or something that can shoot over the walls, suddenly the sentries you can cast over the walls, but they're doing, you're doing 400% weapon damage yourself, and your sentry's doing 100% weapon damage. So if you're not getting in shots, it's really tough to kill things.
Right.
The other big change is it changes your build in almost every case, because previously it was useful to have 2 or 3 spenders at all times, and they had these huge tables of it was all about attack speed, right?
Right.
For the sentry, and you wanted to get Tasker and Theo to make them shoot faster. There was all these breakdowns, and if you have these 3 skills, it'll shoot this one this 6.4 seconds and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
None of that exists anymore. That's all completely irrelevant. The firing speed of the sentries is equivalent to your Demon Hunter's firing speed. So the faster you shoot, the faster they shoot the spenders.
But you're limited by the vengeance pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And you don't need 3 spenders anymore because you never have that much hatred anyway.
Right.
So really, you go with 1 or 2. I mean, I'm using Frozen Arrow because it's pretty cheap and you get a lot of AOE out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also tack on something like Loaded for Bear, or I use multi-shot. I was doing the fire build with multi-shot on the PTR, which is you have the fire sentries shoot out rockets as well, and then you use ballistics because it doubles the damage of rockets, and you get just gigantic multiple damage stuff. It was really effective, but of course you don't get the cold. The cold is nice for hardcore because they all slow down, and with that you use a Call of the Week, and you get a bonus to things that are slowed. And obviously it's nice to slow stuff down and get a debuff when it matters if they kill you. So
sure, and when that proc Bane of the Trapped as well on the legendary
yeah,
gem.
I use that. Yeah, I use that occasionally. The problem is being in the trapped only. I mean, the aura. I mean, the level 25 aura is only 15 yards. That's not much useful with the Demon Hunter.
True.
But yeah, the other big change with this is Enforcer is much less useful as a gem now because the sentries all do half the damage they used to do. Mm-hmm. So I was actually using Z's ZEI
yeah.
on the PTR, which increases your damage every 10 yards you are away from something. And you get that to like level 40, and it's like 7% damage for each 10 yards. And you get you're 30, 40 yards away, you're getting a much bigger damage than you get with the Call of the Week. What's the Bane of the Trapped bonus?
Okay.
It's a much bigger bonus than that, and it's also a bigger bonus than Sentry because of course you're doing all the damage yourself. And then Enforcer, So it definitely, you can change stuff around. You have to modify your build a little bit. You can't stand close to stuff and get any benefit from Zays, but it seems like what are the legendary gems everyone uses? We had a vote on that before. Everyone goes with Bane of the Powerful for one of them, it seems like.
Right.
Because you want to get that, you get that huge buff and the elite damage also with 25%.
Efficacious Toxin, that one's up there too.
That one's very popular. Yeah. I tend to not use that with a Demon Hunter because you get so many crits. I use the Pain Enforcer.
Okay.
Which is more damage per second. It's only 3 seconds, but you get so many crits with a DH. So I guess it depends on your character build. Mirane is also popular, obviously. Efficacious Toxin's good.
Are we going to use the new ones? Or did they have those on the PTR? The new?
They were on. Yeah, they're seasonal. So I had all those. I did a whole thing about the third new one. Is that crazy twink one?
Oh yeah, the Gem of Ease. That looks great.
We'll talk about that at some point closer to the season. That was just insane. I did a whole article about that, and you can self-twink yourself from 1 to 60 in about 25 minutes with that gem. It's just insane.
Nice.
We had one of the guys in the clan died the other night when I was on playing. He just lost his level 66, and he was trying to play it slowly to level 70 just for variety. And of course he died at 66 because Jay Wilson leaped at his grave and pulled him down. So I said I would just rush him. So he just joined my T6 game and would just sit at the entranceway to each rift, and I would clear the rift. And he leveled. It took an hour or so to get to like 65.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking. You can actually level faster than that by yourself with that Gem of Ease. It's just insane. Of course, I died about 7 times doing it, but that's.
But like you said, in hardcore, you probably should tone it down to T1 or T2 or something. Not maybe go T6.
Yeah, what I would love to do is put that on my follower.
Ah.
So on T6, it was adding I think 2,000 experience per kill, and you're only getting what? You get 10% of that from the follower. I'm playing, or is it 50%? I don't even remember now.
Was it 1/7 before? I don't know.
Yeah, it's some weird number. I think it's 1/5 actually.
Okay.
So I mean that's not a huge amount, but I mean 400 more experience per kill for free forever. That's not bad. I mean that's like
Sure.
2 items that give you that bonus. And if you do it yourself, of course, it's gigantic. But you're giving up a socket in your weapon, which you're not going to do very often, except when you're zooming up at the start. But I mean, the whole point with the Gem of Ease is that it made the weapon have a level 1 requirement, any weapon.
Right.
So level 1, I'm using a 2,700 one-handed damage ancient weapon that's giving me 2,000 experience per kill, and it's like, yeah, this is pretty much. I think I killed 3 monsters on T6 and I was level 11, something like that. It's just laughable. I mean, I should have done a video of it. I mean, I think, when you level up, it shows you, you have gained these new skills, and it kind of rolls through them, and you've gained these amount of stats. I think it was showing level 4 when I was level 18, and it was showing level 11 when I was level 25. I mean, I was like 16 levels ahead of what the display could do.
Didn't you say you went to town and it still didn't catch up even after you
Yeah,
got
I
out of
went to
town?
town and re-geared at level 30, and it was still counting. I think I was 41 actually. I went to town and it was like 27, and I got back into the dungeon and it was still doing these level ups. I'd gone to town and enchanted 3 items. I think I actually crafted. I made cane set or something. I think I was like level 34, and I made cane set, which I think is
Sure.
level 33 requirement, and put all 3 canes items on, and went down and kept playing, and it was still trying to catch up to where I had been. Yeah, and that was with no. I didn't have a ruby in my hat. I mean, I wasn't
Wow.
even geared up at all. I had nothing. I hadn't prepared. It was just sort of a spur of the moment thing. I
Uh-huh.
mean, obviously I had the weapon and I had the gym, but I didn't have a socketed helmet at level 15, and I didn't have socketed armor waiting for me. I didn't have Kane's gear. Yeah, it was just insane. I'm really curious. It'd be fun to see people do that when it actually matters. But of course, you
Yeah,
can't do it with your first character. You got to find the greater rift
sure.
first, and get the gym and level up the gym, etc. But oh, that was one thing I was going to ask about legendary gyms. Have you noticed? Are you able to? Have you buffed your legendary gym levels thanks to the greater rifts being able to go higher now?
I would if I weren't focused on the Boon of the Horror that I just found. But yeah, definitely when you're getting, like I said, when I'm getting more 31, 32 keys, that would make it a lot easier to buff the ones that I've already got up to 25.
Yeah, you've got 180 million gold. Why are you using Boon of the Hoarder? You just won it.
Just
Shiny.
because I haven't had it this whole time. Yeah, it's a new
Well,
shiny.
I've never done one of those to 25. I mean, you get that crazy speed boost every time. Every time you pick up a stack of gold. I've just done mine to like 12 and left it there for enough gold. But I can see that would be. That was the other one I was thinking it would be fun to use with the twink. Because then
Oh
you're just
yeah,
never not rocket speed.
yeah. No,
But I
I
never
did.
bothered
I
with that
just
in
kind of
T6.
want to try it out like that. I think I'm up to 21 now, so I just need a few more grifts, and I should get there.
Probably die at 24. Just right there. You'll go 0 for 3 at 60% 5 times in a row or something
Right
right
now,
there.
it's still in the stash though, so I'm okay. I wouldn't lose, at least wouldn't lose the Boon of the Hoarder.
Well, you wouldn't want to lose that. It'll take you 1 second to get a new one. First Greater Rift Guardian you kill will drop one, but yeah, you wouldn't want to lose that, Jim. That'd be too much damage. Okay, so any final thoughts? We're at our time, and we can. Any last thing? Anything else we can get to on your notes?
Nope, we covered everything I had written down.
Indeed, and everything I had written down as well. Okay, so you've been listening to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at diablo8gamers.com, and we'll hopefully get back to a more regular schedule on these. It was a month and a half off or something because of Christmas and other things. Also, there wasn't a huge response to this one from my usual members of guests, which is why Aahz is the only guy here. A couple of other guys weren't able to make the time we were doing this on, but if you have listened to the show and you would like to be on the podcast, I'll put this plug in an hour and a half into the show, so only the really dedicated listeners will notice it, right? If you would like to be on the podcast, give me an email at flux@inkgamers.com and tell me why you want to be on it and give me some idea of your playing experience. We will try to set up a Skype chat and see if you can be an addition. And obviously, if you're playing the game currently and actively, that would be a big boost, not a big bust, although that possibly as well. And you need to bring at least three Jay Wilson jokes, and if they rhyme, it's bonus points. Okay. Any final thoughts, Az? We're done.
That's it.
Are you gonna leap on and try to level your gym
I
for the
got.
next hour here
It's
before it's
right,
too
man. I
late?
got. I got to get to 25. So
Yeah,
it
you're
gets
you're in
over.
a grift right now, probably. Okay. Thanks for your time, man. Talk to you later. And moo.
Moo. Moo. Moo. Moo. Moo.
Okay, good enough.